Good afternoon and welcome back to another episode of Have Game Will Travel. I am DamnitBennett, aka Bennett Newsome. I'm the Director of Esports Growth and Development here at Full Sail University, and I'm super passionate about exploring the diverse world of esports and gaming beyond just skill level. So whether you're a first-time listener or a returning fan, we're thrilled to have you here for this virtual journey through the experiences of industry professionals. So get ready to engage with our guests and learn from their perspectives. Remember to submit your questions in chat. We'll feature them here on the episode, but sit back and enjoy the ride. And today we have Dillon Pomeroy joining us today. How's it going, Dillon?
Hey, good to see you, Bennett. It's going well over here, going well.
Awesome. Well, welcome to the show. Why don't we start off? Go ahead and introduce yourself and just kind of chat about what you do real quick.
Yeah, absolutely. My name is Dillon Pomeroy. I am a partnerships manager at Version1 and Minnesota RØKKR. We're based here in the Twin Cities in Eagan, Minnesota, and represent a lot of the Midwest, but also compete on the international scale. So great to be here, man, and appreciate you having me.
Yeah, absolutely. So obviously, I think with a lot of us, gaming kind of runs really deep. What are some of like your earliest memories that you have when you were introduced to the world of video games?
Yes. I have a few, honestly. It's funny when you ask that question. What obviously comes to mind right away will always be what hits first. But gamed a lot with my little brother growing up. He's 2 years younger than me. We played a lot of Halo. A lot of like ramming warthogs at each other on Blood Gulch and Sidewinder. But also a lot of Madden. Like I think I can remember the full Marshall Faulk Madden NFL. What was that? 03. I think I remember that whole soundtrack, and same with 05 with Ray Lewis on it. But yeah, loved a lot of FPS games, and then got into Call of Duty around then. But lot of vibes around Halo, a lot of vibes around original sports games, even computer games too, like the backyard baseballs and things like that.
Yeah.
Man, good times. Those are good times.
I would say those probably kind of shaped your passion for gaming at a young age, right?
100%.
Did you ever kind of go into that competitive realm? Obviously everyone just kind of called it pro gaming back in the day, but any esports activity for yourself?
No, and unfortunately, I do remember one, Dr. Disrespect kind of energy where there was a Mr. Movies in our town where they hosted. I remember I don't know if it was Halo, but it may have been like OG, like Medal of Honor or something that. Shout out Tyler Burmeister. He's a buddy I had growing up. I think could have gone pro in Halo if we would have been like 3 years younger. It would have hit a little bit more on the mainstream, but nothing competitive as hardcore as I would have loved to have been with that world. Not this time.
Yeah, I'm kind of the same way. I always look back and I think like, man, like only a couple of years later, there would have been like a huge competitive side, but hey,
our eligibility's still left. That's all that. That's all that says to me.
I love it. So obviously, gaming throughout your journey growing up, it sounds like you and your brother played a lot. Was this something that carried over into your college years?
Yeah, absolutely. Again, same exact almost lineup, which is really interesting. I've never thought about that, but a lot of Call of Duty. That was Black Ops 2 era for me, and Modern Warfare 2, which is sweet. But we also played a ton of Shell. A lot of NHL in the old house. We settled bets, we settled qualms. That's how we chose rooms in our house. That was definitely the move. So lots of gaming in college too, and nothing again competitive, which is interesting. But even on campus, there was nothing like in that world that at least I knew of, besides our little group of friends that would either play some Modern Warfare 2 together or play some Black Ops or whatever it was, or definitely some NHL. So it's interesting you mentioned it like that, because those were the days. What about you? Were you in college too, like grinding it out?
Oh, absolutely.
Stuff?
Call of Duty, Halo, the whole 9 yards. But it is funny. I mean, I obviously grew up in Minnesota as well, and coming down to Florida, playing a lot of Chell. It was very interesting for a lot of my friends because they were used to Madden. They were like, "What is this? What is this other game?" So I was always really good at NHL, but we didn't know if that was just because no one else knew what was actually happening in the game versus me that had been, no life in it for so long.
I feel that. Absolutely feel that. It was a great game, man. That's been a great game for a long time. That and FIFA still hold up. So I love that.
Absolutely. So let's talk about college. Obviously, you've gone to school. Talk about where you went and maybe specifically about your marketing and kind of like professional sales studies and how that kind of later would contribute to your career in esports.
Yeah, it's super ironic. I feel like people mention that a lot when they are talking about their careers or their paths into esports. College is a very formative time, of course, and in my world, it wasn't any different. What's ironic is that I didn't think I would work in esports one day. I didn't even really know the rumblings about esports, even, back in 2013, 2014 when I graduated, which seems like, eons ago now, man.
Right.
But when I was at school, so I went to University of Wisconsin Eau Claire, which is an affiliate of the UW system, similar to like the MIAC here in Minnesota. And you have a lot of almost camaraderie between schools, which is now building a really nice budding program in the esports space for Wisconsin schools, which is exciting to see. But I always wanted to be in business. And I think the most broad way I could do that would have either been administration or, in my case, marketing. And I went the marketing route, which offered an awesome professional sales part as well. So I took a lot of that skill set with me after I graduated. I moved into a few entry-level jobs and honestly saw a lot of success right away early in my career by kind of stopping going into entry-level jobs and just starting my own business doing said entry-level jobs. So it worked out nicely to have a marketing and sales background as I sort of built out an agency, which ultimately took me through startups in the tech world and ultimately into esports. So kind of a full circle realm of how I got here. Though, if you're like an alchemist reader, maybe it was always there. It was just always budding under the surface for me. But a little bit of the quick course, background and how I kind of got to where I did.
Yeah, and I love that too. I mean, you talk about, and this is actually kind of like a revolving theme on the show where guests talk about like getting into the industry and they say, well, instead of doing, internships or this or that, I just started my website. I just started my agency. I just did this thing and then I kept at it, right? And tell us a little bit more about building that.
Yeah, I wish someone would have told me that originally is like, you can technically like, Michael Scott, like, declare bankruptcy type of thing. You can like declare you're a business owner and you're going to start your own thing. But ironically, it just like can happen. And that's how businesses start. So I found that very interesting that all I really needed to do was, do what I was doing except for myself. And in this case, I was, selling social media. I was selling, advertising and consulting, working a lot with business owners in a bunch of different, industries from, wineries, breweries. I worked in the cannabis industry in California, like a bunch of random fringe type industries that took me into esports and its open arms. But to your point, I wish someone would have just told me like, hey, you can just write articles and like, you don't need someone to tell you like you're writing articles for us. You can just have takes and put them on the internet, and that is what the internet is. So it took me full circle to do that, to realize that I could be successful doing that, and then, eventually have it translate into an actual role at an org, which wasn't necessarily the end game for me, and ironically ended up being an awesome end game for me as COVID kind of hit as I was just starting being contracted out for Minnesota RØKKR marketing. So total, again, full circle, but worked out well to do it on my own. And I hope people do, realize they can post their own content and do their own videos and tweet however they may want to tweet that fits their brand. So it's definitely a viable route to go.
Yeah, absolutely. We talk about this all the time with students in content creation. If you just got the new cool Elgato product, make a video about it. Like they don't have to send you one to make it, like you can just do that pro bono, and who knows what happens down the line, like that's just something that is going to benefit you moving forward, learning about that aspect of reviews or content or posting your opinions online, right?
Totally agree. It's crazy. It's crazy how it can work like that. It's just, it's so accurate though, man. You're not wrong at all. Not wrong at all.
Now, so we actually got to meet back before the pandemic at the Call of Duty League launch event in Minnesota that was held at the Armory, which was an incredible event. I have incredible fond memories of it, and then like just right after the world shut down, so it was something that was like, man, crazy. I missed those days, But crazy. Was that your first event? I mean, you had mentioned you were just starting to get kind of in tune with RØKKR and in your org there. Like, talk to us a little bit about that.
Yeah. Very fun fact, and one fact that I don't know if people might know, but I had been to other events before launch at the Armory.
Mm-hmm.
However, that was my first official event, and in a professional capacity,
Right.
absolutely my first event. However, I was kind of known as the guy like that would go to wherever Ashley and Brett. Ashley is our director of content. Brett Diamond is our COO. Before I had a job with RØKKR, I would kind of go wherever they were and wear a suit and try to shake their hand and try to get a job there.
I like
work
it
with them. So yeah, a little peek behind the curtain. That was part of what I did in the sense of like either not making my own content necessarily, but trying to get in front of the people that I thought would eventually bring me on. In this case, Brett. So it did work. I will say it wasn't the roundabout way that it necessarily had to go, but Brett does bring that up every now and then. So it wasn't my first event technically, but the Armory was sort of why I was brought on to help sell tickets. I was, at the time in sales and in marketing and consulting, and was brought on to help keep us orderly as we, pitched our huge event. So it was amazing when it finally came together. And looking back on it, now we have about 40, 30 to 40 employees at any given time. I think we did the launch event with like 8 or 10, and it was a huge venue and all 12 teams and all these things, man. So it was a blessing. Were you someone that got to go on stage? Is that how we initially caught up to? Were you like one of those people behind the stage?
I was on stage for the very first match, man. It was Dallas Empire versus the Huntsmen.
Two teams that don't even exist anymore.
Two teams, exactly, right?
That's crazy. I wish we still did that. That was one of the coolest things we ever did. I couldn't believe how many people loved the seating on stage, seeing. I mean, you would have had what, like Claysters or Scump's POV?
I was right behind Scump, and then
crazy.
It was the other side. You could like look directly down at Clayster. So it was a really cool experience for sure.
Oh, that's cool, man. I forgot about all that. But yeah, the launch event was something. That sure was something, and it was, it's testament to the org and testament to us here and testament to Brett and Annie, who I've kind of already mentioned. But they want to be first. We took a lot of pride in being Minnesota and being proud of like our esports scene and all that we've built, and testament to people like you that were coming to events like that. So that's what it's all about, and I think we had a blast doing it and still have a blast doing those in-person events.
Absolutely. It was a tough sell. January in Minnesota,
and it snowed, and of course all the things, man.
Well, tell us this. So you had owned your own marketing consulting agency, and then you transitioned into your role as a partnership manager at Version1 and Minnesota RØKKR. What was that transition like?
Yeah, great question. So I would say it's another example of maybe doing what you think you should do in any capacity. If you have marketing skills and you're in a partner role, lean on those marketing skills. If it's the other way around, if you're in sales but have a marketing background, get creative with your sales tactics and use that marketing background. So I will say I kind of blended all the above. At the time, I was sort of specializing in brand building. So things like social media and advertising, content marketing. Ironically, a lot of those things that a startup needs that at the time we may not have considered ourselves a startup, but we absolutely were. We're owned by the Wilfs. Those types of things that might make us bigger and more corporate also made us smaller and more startup-y. So I really took a lot of my skill set from working with startups and being clean and clear cut with goals. When it came to like my marketing tactics, though, it's sort of ironic that a lot of what I was doing was relationship driven, which initially, kind of was like, let's get this guy maybe on the partnership side. Let's get him working with brands, maybe closing deals, things like that. And that's sort of when I did one of my first ever deals, which was the brewery deal with Waconia Brewing, where we made RØKKR Final Circle Shandy. You can kind of, I think, see a couple here. I got like cases still in my background. But this beer we did where it was this kind of like blending of IP and small town local marketing. And anyways, just had a blast doing this. And I realized like, oh, okay, like marketing can be partnerships as well.
Yeah.
I'm going to love this stuff. So it sort of transitioned me over into this world of partnerships and actual brand and client building.
That's awesome. And so like on your day to day, what would your responsibilities as a partnership manager, be?
Yeah, a lot of maintaining of conversation. I would say it sort of files into three buckets in my world specifically. Number one being overall client management, like keeping everyone happy, being on top of deliverables, giving tours, schmoozing, having fun with partners, that types of fun things. Another bucket would be like prospecting, building our sales, up, building
Right.
revenue, and everything in between the actual sales process, the pitching, and the closing of a deal. And then luckily for me, the last like kind of bucket that I had, or at least maintained, is kind of what we're doing right now. Is I got to work a lot with colleges, high schools, even middle schools. We sort of called it our campus outreach initiatives, and wanted to build up the next generation of gamers, which is such a crucial point. Not only 5 years ago, like when I got into the industry, but also now, and also 5 years from now, and 10 years from now,
Yeah.
and 20 years from now. So it's a small world, as again, best of all, probably Bennett, like how the college world works and how expansive yet divisive it can be,
Mm-hmm.
but just how important it is into like the actual funnel of esports
Yeah.
roles. It can get big really quickly, so it's
Yeah,
another
absolutely.
exciting.
And especially with a growing industry like this, getting experience while you're in school, like it's such a powerful tool to kind of get a leg up, right? And you're able to
Totally.
walk out the door with the experience that a lot of people are looking to get after graduation. So it's always going to make it that much better. But you talk about the beer and the brewery thing. Is there any other like memorable or successful partnerships or marketing campaigns that you have been involved with so far?
Yeah, well, I would hope so. I don't mean to say like, yeah, of course. Like,
Duh. Come on, Bennett.
I gotta tone down the humility a little bit there, or tone up the humility. Honestly, it's like my little background has like a ton of random things. Like this is my dog is getting up too, but this is we did a deal with Bush's Beans, probably
Mm-hmm.
one of my most favorite deals we've ever done. They were a partner for our Rocket League run from the spring major last year into Worlds, which we ended up doing great. We had a
Yep.
great Worlds run and it was really fun, but you can kind of see they had like Duke in a little, it's off my screen just a little bit. There's like a poster right here. But it's got Duke in a Rocket League car. We did content. We did a
That's
Cooking
cool.
with Com series. Super fun deal. Also was around for the beginning of the USAA deal with RØKKR, with our RØKKR Call of Duty team, which not only is really important to the landscape, in my opinion, of Call of Duty esports, but also to RØKKR's, contribution to the industry, where
Mm-hmm.
I had never realized how important USAA was to a lot of individuals, especially military members, veterans, their families. We did a skin with USAA in the
Yeah.
RØKKR, or in the Call of Duty, in the game. They're on our jerseys. Really, really cool stuff. And we also have our RØKKR Regiment program, which we partner with, everyone from local to internationally based troops, and support them through our RØKKR Regiment program with tournaments and fun stuff like that. So what I've really loved, I think, the most about these types of partnerships, and especially within esports, I will say, is that it ties back to not only being really fun, but having some sort of backbone around an initiative, whether it's women in gaming, military member support, all sorts of things that are not only, again, in my opinion, really important,
Yeah.
but supporting that next level of gamers, the college kids, the next options for people to get into. So lucky to have been a part of a lot of them, but honestly still enjoy the buzz of, a new deal or a new idea or a new relationship. That's what it's all about.
Yeah, and I feel like you guys are doing really well. I mean, I don't know if it's just because I've been tuned into both orgs and being at those events, but I'm always seeing and hearing about everything that you guys are doing, which is fantastic, because you want to continue to evolve, continue to make new events. And speaking of events, obviously you just held kind of like your recent home series at the Palace Theater, which is like a huge significant event for you and the team, and really the local esports community. Do you have any insights on kind of planning and the execution of that event?
Yeah, I will say first off, like, it's funny to again almost like juxtapose about launch event and then a home series event, because launch event was and so were our majors. You know, we've held majors at Mystic Lake. We held our home series kind of on the, you know, in the back end of the first rounds of COVID. We held like some outdoor items, and then of course the launch event. But this home series was the first of its kind where we were like, man, screw it. Let's try to get a couple teams here for Call of Duty. Let's play in person. Only one day. Let's not spend $1 billion on this thing. You know, not that they cost $1 billion, but they cost a lot of money to put on and host and travel. And what I truly think we did was build out a blueprint for profitable one-day events where it can almost mimic like a Twins doubleheader.
Yeah.
And it can fit in with people's schedules. Local fans can get there quickly. Fans from far away can get there for a night if they wanted to. And we had a blast with it. We did one in Madison at the Orpheum, which, you know, you'd gotten to check out too. And then we did one at the Palace Theater in St. Paul, and truly welcomed all of our Midwestern fans, our Minnesota and Wisconsin fans, and truly had a blast with it. The blend of our partners being involved, the blend of all the Call of Duty teams that came and competed and honestly humored us in the wake of a lot of cool competitive things. We had a blast with it. And honestly, like both events, if you know, we're talking vibes and energy, were insane and no different than you know, a packed kind of Vikings game vibe or a hockey game. Honestly, I had a few friends tell me it was like going to a Wild game. Because the crowd's educated, you know, they know when to cheer or when not to cheer, which is a huge part of hockey. And also, you know, just the energy around when RØKKR plays. It was really special. It means a lot that we got to do those events. And again, I hope it builds out the ability to do profitable one-day revenue-generating events. It's really innovative.
Yeah. Now, was it the inspiration behind this event more on the RØKKR side, or was it like top down from the Call of Duty League?
Nope. Yeah, it was, I will say, a lot of our guy, Brett Diamond. It was sort of his idea. Oh, sorry. My, my sweet boy. It was a lot of Brett Diamond coming up with an idea and bringing it up, you know, across the line. And honestly, our org was on board right away. Everybody's like, let's do this. This sounds really cool. We had hosted a major, you know, we hosted the launch of it. We hosted a major. And we always want to be, you know, in person with our fans. So any sort of loophole we could find to get with our fans was something we were always looking at doing.
How did like the venue selection impact kind of the atmosphere and engagement? Obviously, we've got Lugnuts that was at the event in Minnesota in chat. And were there any kind of unique challenges or advantages associated with hosting, you know, the esports at event and a more traditional, you know, theater?
Yeah, no, it's a really, really fair question. I will say, I think it helped that the spaces were smaller because it was less to maintain. One thing we talked about almost every meeting was like, we're not going to do less fanfare than the Call of Duty League were to do at a major. Like we wanted to mimic, we wanted to be smoky and spotlights and music. We wanted everything else to hit. We just didn't want it to look like it was a shoddy put together thing. And I think we accomplished that. That was a really big part though. And ironically, something that was cool was that it does mimic a concert actually more than a sporting event, right? Like it is sort of spotlighty on two different teams. It's sort of more focused on, you know, the MC. How does an MC bring people into the mix? What sort of events can we have in between matches that keep the crowd vibe, you know, and the energy up? So little things like that, you know, again, very fair and cool question that you brought up, but those are things that we were conscious of, and we have great people behind the scenes like CV at the time and Katie, these individuals that do this really, really, really well, and truly had a blast doing it and brought us all in and taught us how to be, you know, the most helpful in those situations. So it was pretty cool, pretty fun thing to be a part of.
Yeah, and I like that comparison too, because I really truly think that it does bridge those gaps between like a sporting event and a concert, right? Because it's not all sports all the time. There's different things happening, and then you're putting on a show at the end of the day, and a production, right? So it definitely feels really kind of nice in that wheelhouse.
It is. It's funny. I think that'll be something we always keep an eye on. Is everybody's like, when are you going to play US Bank Stadium? It's like maybe sometime soon, but would it not be felt better in the XL Energy Center or something like that? You know, like something that is more Coliseum vibes, like the Dickies Arena down for Rocket League that we went to. it's a funny call out that we do compare esports a lot to traditional sports, but man, if it doesn't have the same entertainment vibe as something like a production or a concert, it's definitely an overlap.
Yeah, I mean, I think so. And each game obviously has its own kind of vibe and feel, right? And so obviously with these Call of Duty's events, they've kind of had the same look and things like that. But that's kind of the beauty of esports, is each thing is different, right? You're putting on multiple types of events that can lead to a lot of different looks, and the fan base is sometimes a lot different from one to the next. Is there any insight that you may have about like organizing an event like this? Like obviously from sponsors to partnerships, what was kind of that process like in building this event?
Yeah, especially the so my role specifically, starting and ending with our partners. We wanted to give our brands we worked with, again, to the point of Call of Duty level, not corporate but league level events. We wanted to maintain that with a partner, should they be at the Palace Theater, at the park in the center of town, like wherever we're gonna have this thing. We wanted to make sure they felt visible and everything like that. So, shout out Blaze and shout out Jenna from my side and Alex on the partnerships team, where, Blaze brought in someone like Xfinity. They hosted a fan Wi-Fi, which is a really creative activation where the fans got free Wi-Fi, which is really cool. They supported the event through internet and through their fiber program. I think we were joking, but I think it's at 10K now. They have like a fiber 10K. Yeah, they skipped
skipped a few, right?
Yeah, or 10G or 10K or whatever it is. But same with USA, and then we had Tyson involved, Tyson Food Brands. Yep. They did like a chicken toss during the event. So a lot of the partner stuff is really fun. It activates well, and it feels more like a Timberwolves game, right?
Yeah.
I will say though, the marketing team, the events team, the operations team, man, do they do a hell of a job all around. They bring everyone else in. Again, they are the people behind the scenes. We also worked a lot with our Vibe Squad, which is college leveled individuals that come in and help set up hardware, community manage during the event, online, run our Discord, all that stuff, where we were kind of talking at the beginning of the call. Really great place to get involved in esports or get help or add something to your resume is to like volunteer for these events or even get hired on for these events. And you can definitely get some real world experience pretty quickly. So we leaned a lot on those students for setup and teardown as well, which is really important. A lot of different things, a lot of different moving parts.
Yeah. And you called it the Vibe Squad. Is that what it was?
Yeah. V1 BE Vibe Squad.
I like it.
It's a cool little ring to it, and has been something that's been building for a couple of years now. And honestly, we lean on it as much as we can. We also obviously have a ton of capable staff, but it's something that we're proud of building and have utilized a lot.
How does someone get involved with the Vibe Squad?
Yeah, so right now, if you're like on our site, we have, just version1.gg. People can put their resumes in there or apply to a number of different roles. There's, like I said, clipping, graphics, a street team, which would be that similar to like helping out at watch party stuff.
Yeah.
And then you work less than like 20 hours a month. It's pretty specific. It's pretty much like our random one-off events. And we'd reach out to you, ask if you're able to help. And then again, as I like to emphasize, I love seeing it on resumes because I'd rather see like you ran 2 or 3 events rather than, you were a bank teller for 2 years. Like, not that both aren't important, but I think in esports especially, I'd rather see you've done an exact role that we're kind of looking for. It's nice to see that type of help.
Yeah, and I couldn't agree more. I think that sometimes people don't value what may seem like a little thing, but in reality, and especially in the world of esports, is such a big deal. Even for a streamer that really knows the ins and outs of OBS, that's a huge skill that you may not be realizing how big of a deal that is. So
its own language.
Yep.
Totally. Discord, Twitch, massive vibes in those worlds of like you can set a name for yourself pretty easily and know more. I was talking about this earlier with someone, with a student, that there's a world where you may know more than executives with some role that you might have, whether it's Discord or Twitch related. And you should not discount that knowledge.
So I'm sure you're like myself. We wear a lot of different hats with the roles that we have in our jobs. How do you stay up to date with kind of the ever-changing esports world and gaming landscape? And how does that affect your decision making when it comes to partnerships and marketing strategies?
Yeah. I mean, a lot of us are obviously plugged into Twitter pretty
Yeah.
extensively. That's kind of mine. Reddit here and there, honestly, especially vetting out a client maybe or a brand. One thing that I talk a lot about with brands is just how authentic we can be, and I try to educate them on the ins and outs of the industry before they come into the industry,
Yeah.
because they may get really hyper focused feedback, especially from Gen Z, where, like, let's say Bush's Beans comes in a non-authentic way, in an
Yeah.
unauthentic way, and it's tone deaf, and they use like fake gamer language, and
Mm-hmm.
some of those things where, um, I almost, this has never happened with Bushes or anything like that, but we stay away from things like the mom's basement verbiage, because
Right.
it's not the world we live in anymore, whether or not they're trying to be punny or ironic. These are athletes. We work with athletes. These are high level skilled individuals that compete at the top of their game. So that's a thing that I'm conscious of, and I try to check on Twitter. I will say brands are being much more like, they have a cool energy on Twitter and a cool social presence a lot of times now. We've worked with Pagoda Egg Rolls. They engage with just about every post we have in a funny way. Scuff, controllers, like anybody that's in
Yeah.
the space or on the fringe of the space seems to be understanding more and more of the ways to get involved, and doing it in an authentic way, whether it's through Twitter, Reddit, whatever.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the Twitch chat will let you know whether
You're right.
you're hitting it or not. So it's
I
always
can
good
see the
to.
W's or the L's now
Yeah.
as they spam. But yes, yeah, exactly.
So do you kind of have like a crash course that you give your brands and just like, all right, here's what you need to know. Like, what does that look like bringing onboarding a new brand into the fold?
Yeah, a little bit. I will say our deck is pretty extensive in education. If they need it,
Yeah.
it's more extensive, obviously. What I will say is, it's something I like to talk about because it's super accurate. But I can't tell you how many meetings I've been in where it's, the buyer, the director of blank, the VP, the CEO of blank, and then they have like a coordinator in there that plays Rocket League.
Right.
It's, I'll be talking to like a big Fortune 500 brand, and the CEO brings her daughter in the room because she plays Valorant and can like speak the language a little bit. So it does blend it a little bit. One thing that we try to do though is, we're the experts, we're the
Right.
agency. So if a team wants to work with, let's say, our all women's Valorant team, which we're super proud of, and they're badass, they're probably our most watched team honestly right now, where
Yeah.
they're winning stuff, they're beating men, but they want to be known as gamers.
Yeah.
They take pride in being women, of course, but we try to do with our brands, if they want to activate with our women's brands, like, let's do it in an authentic way. Let's not pander to the fact that they're
Right.
badass women in esports. Let's pander to the fact that they're gamers in the space. So again, it's kind of blending that line of what's implied, what can be educated upon, and how we do it. So I will say a lot of it comes from the deck and the actual partnership building, but also comes from just education, and hopefully their rep or their manager or whoever working with me, to temper those expectations too, where it's like, we probably shouldn't say that because it seems a little tone deaf, versus saying
Right.
that because it maybe fits the vibe a little bit better.
Yeah, I like that. And obviously the stuff that you guys are doing for inclusion is huge. Can you talk a little bit more about that?
Yeah, so we have a number of things, and I'll probably miss some, which is kudos again to our team and our marketing squad and everybody on that side of things. But we have RØKKR Regiment, which is our veterans program, and our military program. We have Visionaries, which is for inclusion. You're going to catch a lot of V's and ones.
Yeah,
in the names here.
I'm getting the vibe, right?
You are. You very much are. Speaking of, we have the Vibe Squad, obviously, which is our college outreach. Visionaries is our women in inclusion. Tournaments, Discord, again, women in gaming, very, very focused. We work with the Boys and Girls Club here in Minnesota specifically. We've done some volunteer work through them and with them, as well as the indigenous tribes, again, here in Minnesota. So, man, all said and done, probably 4 or 5, 6 different things that have, real specific goals, but then also people with roles like mine where we're working with colleges or high schools, or they're working with women in gaming, and there may not be as defined of roles, but are specific to what we're kind of doing. And again, I find a lot of importance in it, as well as like I get a ton of energy from it. There's nothing I like more than a day of working with colleges or working with students that doesn't re-motivate me for what I'm working on in my actual role too. It's weird that it works like that, but I definitely trust that it's something that I should be doing with that feeling.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely a great thing that you guys are doing, and we hope that that continues. You know, that more brands, more orgs start to really focus and invest their time there, because I think for a lot of people it's super important to be seen, and I'd be able to identify with someone that's either in the game or playing or competing, whatever it may be. Really opens up the opportunities, which is always good.
Totally agree. I totally agree. It's so easy to do too.
Yeah.
I think like you said, just being seen, sending some shirts out with like a Cloud9 logo on it or a V1 logo on it or a 100T logo on it. It literally adds a level of relationship that I didn't realize was so cool until, a student said that it was just cool to hear me talk. And granted, I'm just one person, but to your point before we even hopped in, it legitimizes this like dream. When I talk to parents and tell them like this is my role, I play video games. I attempt to be good like I was back in the day, but this is my role. I do this professionally. I get paid to do it. That's what's key.
Yeah, absolutely, and that there's a career in the field. I think that's even more important. It's kind of the idea again of the show, is that there's so much more to esports than it just being good at the game. Obviously, that's a big important piece of the puzzle for competitive side, but everything that else is supporting that competitive. There's a huge career field there, and providing those types of opportunities is huge. And you mentioned, engaging with fans and interaction. Obviously, these events that you put on locally and in market are super important to continue to connect with that. Was there any specific kind of fan engagement things that you had done recently or in the past that it really stood out?
Yeah, I will say almost every one of them stands out because every day, and you might even feel this too, man, but every day I work in gaming, I look at it as a blessing. Like, I just love this industry so much. Unfortunately, this industry does not run on love. It does not run on passion, which I think it very well could, with all the vibe and all the energy that people have towards it. Every single watch party I've ever been to or we've ever done has a pretty special place in my heart where, there were days when we first started, man, and one person would show up, two people would show up. It would be only staff. It could be us at a random B-dubs. I take a lot of pride and a lot of nostalgia in seeing our watch parties now that can have anywhere from 100 to 200 to 300 people at them if we're on site. So I really appreciate those fan engagement events because, again, before I had a job in this, I was looking for anything and everything esports related. Ironically, I was wearing a suit and trying to get a job through Brett or Ashley. But I would go to T-Wolves gaming things. I would go to League. I don't even know League. I would go to League matches. Like, I just wanted to be, as you mentioned, I wanted to be heard. I wanted to feel fulfilled from this passion that I had. And so watch parties have a very special place in my heart and always will. Whenever I roll up to one, there's people standing outside waiting to get in. It's just like, dude, this is so cool. What a thing that Brett and honestly the whole staff trusted in the process for, and is really fun to work with now.
Yeah, and then you talk about the nostalgia of that. I mean, being able to be part of the thing when it's super small is really cool too. And I know there's a lot of people that like to get in on that ground level, right? And then get, as time goes on, as it does, right? It evolves and it grows into this huge thing, which is really cool. Do you guys do a lot of sponsorships with like things like watch parties?
Yeah, absolutely. We have pretty set tentpole. We call them arms of our business. Things like one thing we take a lot of pride in is our game day activations. So our social posts are worth a lot. There's lots of visibility. I think it's something that esports actually does really well is like covers events decently. The Vikings game, you could probably search on Twitter and find pretty quickly what the score of the game is. We want that same energy with esports. So that's something of value. Watch parties have a massive value to us. You can come with us to large scale events like Worlds or like majors and activate alongside us as a partner. Lots of content. We've looked at everything from big time house, like content promoted content houses, all the way down to a video where Com cooks something like with a dairy product with Midwest Dairy or something like that. So all sorts of facets. A lot of them that we lean on pretty heavily and specifically, of course, but also like are really creative with our clients, no matter what they're thinking of. You never know. And we have a lot of great local brands as well as, regional and even national brands that know we're proud of being Minnesotan. And so they'll lean into that with us, which is always really fun.
Yeah. For someone that let's say that they've been working for years in more of a traditional sense, whether that's partnership or marketing or anything really, and they want to transition into the world of esports, what sort of tips or things would you tell them to focus on?
Yeah, great question. Two ways that I would look at it these days. One, a lot of orgs are built really differently. I don't know why or how that structurally happens, which is really interesting to me. Someone like a phase can have hundreds of employees across media, across music, across gaming. A much different conglomerate than someone like us, who's going to be really focused on the competitive teams, maybe has a couple streamers, versus someone like 100 Thieves, who has lots of streamers, lots of competitive teams, but makes really sharp merch and pays the bills through other means. But I think one thing that not a lot of people talk about that I like to mention is you can be in marketing at Verizon, you can be in marketing at Best Buy, Target, whatever. A lot of these brands are looking at esports more and more right now as a marketing vehicle.
Yeah.
So if you have a role at a bigger, type of firm, or even a smaller, company that's someone that's not a Fortune 500, you could build out that avenue for them. And it's an unaffordable arm. It's supporting an industry. Like again, this is pretty uncommon, I think, across other industries, but we could do $100 deal. I don't think I've ever done $100 deal, but we technically could. We could work with a college for $500 or something, right? All the way up to, millions. So the fact you can kind of work in that middle ground where someone like the Vikings or the Twins or, a bigger traditional sports conglomerate couldn't, there's ways to make your company you're working at right now have pretty coherent messaging to Gen Z through gaming, and you could be that person that builds that out. So a lot of people try to get into esports without realizing that they could get into esports through where they're currently at. Yeah. And I think that's a really cool thing that hopefully people are, digging through and entertaining a little bit.
I always hear from people being like, well, I don't know anything about gaming. I'm not actively gaming. Is that really that big of a problem to make that transition? Or do you think that that it comes with time,
I would say it comes with time. Also, if one, right? Like if there's a reason you like gaming, right, there's probably one game decently well. So immerse yourself in that. Yeah. If you don't know gaming at all and you're looking to get into it, tune in on a Saturday to Twitch and just find some esport you like and all of a sudden start watching it. I've never played CSGO in my life, but I have watched countless hours of it. So, you become a fan of things, as before, over time anyways. But I think that's the nice thing about esports is people want to learn it. Yeah. People want to become passionate about it. So if you exude that passion too, it's pretty easy to have that hit across the board.
Definitely. And obviously there's quite a engaging bunch of youth that want to get into esports, whether that's primarily from a content or a competitive side. What sort of advice do you give the up and coming class of kids that are going to be going pro? What sort of advice from a partnerships manner, maybe on the business side, would you give them as they get into this world, right?
Yeah, I love this. This is something I think a lot about, and I think that I take a lot of pride in from my side on the professional side. And I think, Bennett, you'll have probably something you've already said before, but making content, make content, stream, do stuff with a camera on. And if you're not comfortable with that, which is very fine, you don't have to make content to be successful in this. Be sure to network, just build relationships somehow. And if you're not a fan of making content or building relationships, work really hard, build things out on your own that you can share through socials or whatever else it might be. Point being here is like we live in a time where your personal brand can almost jump ahead of you. Mm-hmm. 9 times out of 10, and probably even more than that, probably 99% of the time, if you're having an interview or working through an application process, they've already Googled you. Yeah. So whatever comes first is going to be their first impression, and then you get to give them their second impression. So I think it's really important that people realize the power in that and not be scared of it. I take a lot of pride in again, how I have blended my tweets with like things I'm passionate about,
Right.
along with my actual voice and how I am as a person and how I carry myself. And that's not always easy or encouraged necessarily. And I think it comes with time in an industry. But I think people really discount how much they know about something and could really be an expert at it. If you're a great IGL, tweet out strats on a different map. You know, if you're a really, really good, you know, trick shotter, but you want to play competitive COD, like lean into the content side.
Yeah.
There's so many ways to be involved in this industry in a cool way. And how you do it, how you get there is something that people do care about. I think no matter what your story, people do care about it.
Yeah, and again, I think that's all valuable skills that you're learning along the way, right? If you're making
Totally.
content, if you're just starting to tweet and build out that side of content, like there's so many opportunities that could potentially come your way. But I like how you said that they're already gonna Google you. You know, like you're going. That's not. You're not. That's gonna be your first impression. You're not gonna make that in person. That's your second. That's so true nowadays, and that's obviously changed from how it used to be. But I think approaching that in a good way is always good. You know, I think some people have learned that you know what they say on the internet follows them around for a while. So you know, esports has had their fair share of that. But you know, I think that from a partnership standpoint and being a partnership manager, how do you look at something that may be a little bit more risky of a player or a brand? Like, how do you approach that with a brand?
Yeah, really fair question. Honestly, we do quite a bit of vetting process always. So do our clients, of course.
Right.
Like, I think that's another important note is that we'll pitch our ideas, and they vet them out. You know, they set the deliverables. We pitch deliverables, but they set expectations. I will say it's like it has never been an issue. We've had media companies like bring up a player or two and be like, "Hey, we had an issue with this back in the day," or they've looked at their Twitter or their tweets or their, you know, what have you. There's something out there that, rightfully so, people can have an issue with. But one thing that we've noticed, and I think traditional sports is really following this trend right now, is players make the orgs don't make the players. I think orgs wish it was the other way around because they think they're all super cool and they have beautiful things like Rocker Regiment and Visionaries programs that mean a lot. Those should be being done anyways because business is business and that's what good businesses do, and we're proud of that. When it comes to players, sometimes it's interesting to see the amount of an influx of fandom can come and can go with and without a player. You know, if we have a COD roster of really prominent individuals with lots of followers, they may react differently than a season where our players are maybe more tactile or slimmer or, you know, have a more sleek team following. And what I mean by all this is just to say, like, we do vet out a lot of this,
Right.
but we know the power of having a great player and a great player that has a good voice. You know, Dillon Attach gets a lot of love in this world because he's a tried and true professional. He's been in the industry forever and he can be trusted with deliverables. He's just a really fantastic guy. And I think that is unfortunately not the norm in gaming. You know, back to your previous question, you'll notice that all those things I mentioned, there's effort behind them. You have to be doing things. You can't just be expecting someone to give you a job in esports. You have to start making things that show you have value. And I think that applies to professionals as well. Like, what makes you valuable? Are you a good talker? Can you do mid ad reads, whatever it might be? So a few different ways that happens, but those are the ways we kind of keep an eye on it.
Definitely. You talked earlier about you know, the community and the nostalgia you had for being around in those first early days, and obviously from like the rocker side, you've been there since really kind of the beginning, right? How have you seen the community grow, and was there anything specific that you guys built that really helped those community efforts grow?
Yeah, I love this one. I definitely think watch parties. I know I've kind of beat that one to the ground.
No,
already,
I mean, it's a great thing, right?
It's like, and what's funny about it though is that, like even the home series, let's say, right? So like if you look at watch parties and you look at home series, at their bare bones, they're the same thing. which is again testament to like the ability of building out this in-person aspect. We didn't want to have it be a fugazi type of thing at the end of everything. Like when, especially because during COVID, you know, we had just started doing watch parties before everything hit.
Right.
We didn't want to lose that momentum. So we
Yeah.
held like Discord watch parties. You know, we brought people into the fold in different ways. Things like that were really important to us always. So a lot of fan touch points and activations were always key. I think it's crazy though to see that like how things grew and how they got to where they are today is just through like those core individuals that started coming to every event. Whether they came alone or brought a friend or two, those people still hang on, and I still see those same people that went to event number 1 now participating in event number 30 or whatever.
Yeah.
So that's really freaking cool. I love that part of it. Second is like we are very welcoming. I think we tell people all the time, like, don't be intimidated. Go to an event, you know, go enjoy yourself. And you can hear that about a lot of things, but I truly think people do feel that when they go to Can Wonderland for a Rocket League match, or go to the bar for, you know, a rocker match and have some beers with the random people there.
Yeah.
It's, we really built up, and I think it's ironically Minnesotan. It's also just implied that we love our community. We love that group. And so that's going to grow naturally, just as our boss always says, one fan at a time.
Yeah.
So we've always believed in that. And I think it's something that we've totally had testament in this whole time.
How is like the player fan engagement built for you guys from your end? Is that like something that, I mean, obviously I know that the players are they got to practice, they got to be on stage, they have a lot of things on their plate. How does that work into the fold with what you guys are trying to build there in Minnesota?
Yeah, great question. With respect to them and how they operate, you know, we're competitive first. So like for example, our RØKKR guys are down in Dallas, where they compete based on good old fashioned ping. You know, we'd love to have more live events, which we obviously encouraged and held. But, you know, for example, with them, like there's the opportunity to hang out with them after our matches. You know, they took pictures with people for hours after.
That's awesome.
Back to your question kind of earlier too. One really cool thing about esports is how close it is to be able to like have a tangible conversation with a professional that you really look up to. You know, I'm sure you could tweet at football players and, you know, get feedback, or tweet at, you know, soccer players and get feedback. But I feel like in most cases, and in a lot of cases, not only does RØKKR always communicate with our fans, but our players love they love their fans. I already mentioned Dillon, but some of these guys, and especially our women's team and our Rocket League players too, they just love hanging with fans. They realize how surreal this thing is. You know, our Rocket League guys are, I think, Beast Mode 17. I think Daniel is 16 and Com is 19. So
much ahead of them, you know.
Yeah, they're just living their dream, and they want to share that, and they want to be people to other people, which I think is, again, really emulative and is unnecessary. It's encouraged, of course, but I love that they're just people at the end of the day. That's a really beautiful thing about sports, for sure.
Yeah. Now with your guys' kind of concept for the home series, or I keep calling it a different name every time I talk about it.
You nailed it.
But like, where do you see this? How does this evolve for you and your brand? Like, what's the next step on that?
I mean, hopefully more of them. Like the ability to do these things, and I don't know the history behind traditional sports almost at all. So I don't know if the first ever football game, there were fans there, or if the first ever doubleheader for baseball, there were fans at both games. But I truly do believe in this blueprint, and I believe that like one-off sporting events and esporting events is doable. So I hope it's encouraged, and I hope it's pushed a little bit more, because man, was it fun.
Yeah.
You know, if you told me that, you know, you already mentioned like Huntsman, but if there was a cool Chicago team and us, and there was like the ability to play somewhere in a neutral ground, I think people would love that. And it does prove that like it doesn't have to all be big expensive majors held in Brazil for 2 weeks long.
Right.
They can be these like 2-day, 1-day things that fly to it or not. You know, hopefully the local people are able to push these things just as much. But as you're seeing with collegiate, and as we're seeing with high school and colleges here, there's a massive audience for people that are hungry for the ability to go to these things at the pro level, but are also bringing fans at their own level. You know, they're able to have college events that have fans at them and everything. So I hope it's a good blueprint. I hope it's utilized because we certainly took a lot of pride in it.
Yeah.
But I think that's the future. Hopefully, as esports grows, that there's more one-off events, and you go and watch an event, and you head home, you grab a burger on the way, and you're home before 9. It's kind of nice.
Yeah, absolutely. We have, and honestly, I'd probably say the most requested information from our current students here at Full Sail is as they're getting ready for graduation. One of the top things that they're interested in is pursuing a career in the esports industry, but specifically in partnership management and marketing, like in those roles. So for any students that may be watching, what sort of advice would you give them as they're just getting ready to graduate? What should they be doing? Any things that maybe could help give them an opportunity in these fields?
Yeah. First off, I love that I like to think I work on the cool side. I always say I have the cool job. I kind of get to do the blend of like everyone's job, and it's super fun. You get a little hands-on events, you get hands-on creative, you work with the players and the streamers. You sort of get to touch all the facets. But I will say marketing is just as badass. Content is just as badass. Production, video, graphics, everything in between is badass too. So from my side specifically, and how to best, I think, break into the scene, whether it's partners or marketing, which I have backgrounds in both, meeting people is something that I really lean on and just like always mention as something to maybe not trust as a process to get you a job, but literally cannot hurt you in not getting a job. Yeah. So meeting people, I say all the time, slide into the DMs. I best way I like to put it is something that I did to get a job here. Mimic the role that you think you should have. If you think marketers write articles, write articles. If you think partners build out decks and showcase what you might do with a random brand. And then connect with someone who has a role that you would like, whether it's a director or a VP or a manager at an org, at a brand, wherever you're looking. And then just slowly, like, in my opinion, meet with them, be respectful, share your passion, but also do not ask for a job right away, of course. Right. Trust in the process of like who you are as a person and how your passions might shine through, because that will exude through any conversation you're probably having, especially something around esports. And if I get people that hit me up, I always meet with them because that's what we do, and that's how you help other people. And I think that when people get jobs, then they go and help other people. It's just this cool thing that we're kind of all building off of. So that's my recommendation. Meet lots of people, join lots of things, shake lots of hands, slide into lots of DMs, have really good conversations, build up your portfolio. And all said and done here, come from kindness. I haven't mentioned that yet, but I am absolutely a person who believes in treating everyone with respect. Esports can get dramatic. Yep. I think all people do mean well, and I hope that there are bad things that happen and you can take sides in those cases. But I do believe coming from a place of kindness is always, always, always the best way to do things, and totally can come back to help you out in the future. So I do believe that, and I know you do too.
Yeah, absolutely.
We've only had vibey conversations. I think we've only hugged anytime we see each other. So it's a good duo to talk about it. But I do believe that that's a big important thing too.
Absolutely. Spread the love, and I think everybody's going through it, right? You never know where somebody is. And so being kind is like the easiest thing you could do.
It's totally true, man. Totally true.
Awesome. Well, Dillon, man, thank you so much for being here. I want to give you some time to obviously let people know where they can find you, how to reach out to you, all the things, any upcoming, cool stuff that you're doing. So the floor is yours, my friend.
Yeah, appreciate you again. Thanks for having me on. Again, my name is Dillon Pomeroy. I'm partnerships manager at Version1 and Minnesota RØKKR. I'm on Twitter most extensively, just at Dillon Pomeroy. It's my first and last name. And then definitely on LinkedIn, which is just /Dillon Pomeroy. Please reach out, if you're seeing this live or later, whatever it might be. Feel free to slide into my DMs. I did glance over and I saw, shout out Jackie. I saw you hanging in the chat too. And then maybe even a last question I can answer as I'm kind of wrapping up.
Yeah.
Always down to talk first and foremost. And then second off, like, love networking and love just meeting people. So however I can be of service. But what advice do I give on sticking out when networking? Ooh, I like this question. And I'll try to answer it briefly and concisely. When you're networking, let's say you're a student, we kind of talked a little bit about it, but if you're a student, like lean on being a student. If you're in your entry level role, believe in your role, be an entry level role. And what I mean by this is like, don't go into a networking event without some sort of title or some sort of group you want to be known from, and how you want to maybe fit in the future. So for an example, let's say you're a student at, I saw Jackie in here, so Mankato.
Right.
If you go to a networking event, you're not just a random person with a name. You are blank. You're Dillon Pomeroy. You're a student at Mankato, and you're studying marketing. Here's how I think I would be an asset to your organization once I graduate with my marketing degree. It sounds obvious, but what you're doing is you're actually associating a specificity with yourself that will be memorable. So like they'll remember you as a marketing student, not as like the random college student they may have met. So hopefully that helps a little bit. But in my world, like when I had my own business, I didn't go into stuff saying I was like CEO and founder. I said I was a marketing consultant. That was what people associate with me as. And then hopefully it's like fits into your little elevator pitch, which hopefully you know elevator pitches by now. I will not take the time to explain elevator pitches to you, but hopefully it helps a little bit. And honestly, Jaeger, I think that's who said it.
Yep.
Jaeger or Jagger Bombastic. Just feel free to DM me if I didn't hit your question as well as I could have.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for being here. We do appreciate all of the great advice. And we will be back with another episode here shortly. But thanks for hanging out with us tonight, and we will see you later.
My pleasure. Thanks, guys.